What's going on, people? Welcome to the United Stand. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the 8 o'clock show. I'm not going to try and say what day it is, what time it is. I keep trying to do that, and I messed up this morning. I said 10 p.m. when it was 10 a.m. I'm all over the shop. And I haven't been to the pub and got drunk because we're allowed out. That's not the reason. That's Ricky. Hopefully, you lot are doing good. We've got a new member today. We've got Owen joining us today. So big up to Owen. Thanks for joining us, bro. How you doing, newbie?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm excited to talk about all things United. Excited.
That's it. That is what we do here. And we're joined by Jay, as usual, and Ricky and Alex as well. A lot to get into tonight. Now, this is a story that it keeps coming up the odd time. The Ronaldo sensationalist return. You know, how beautiful would it be to see Ronaldo come back and win us the Premier League again? You know, the whole Fantasyland thing. But, you know, there are reports saying that this could actually happen. You know, it's not fake. It is true. There's Italian reports saying that Manchester United getting Champions League, which we know we're pretty much going to get now. I definitely can say that. Might be used as a way to tempt Cristiano Ronaldo back, which also in turn could, you know, entice the conversations between Paul Pogba and Juventus. We do know that Paul Pogba has always been flirting for a long time. We've wanted to go back there. Ronaldo, I mean, wow. Owen, first time on, we'll throw it to you first. Ronaldo for Pogba swap. I mean, are you trying to hear any of that? Can you see any truth in it, or is it just a nuts thing to you to say?
Well, I could go on a really big spiel. I could say, possible that no, no, I don't. We've heard it before. That's my worry about this. Is it feels like we always get to a point with Ronaldo, and it always comes to a certain point Ronaldo's interested, because don't you notice it's ironic, these things start to come up at the same time. You start hearing the same reports that actually Ronaldo's interested in going back to Real Madrid, or Real Madrid are interested in bringing Ronaldo back. And I feel like after how many times you're getting your fingers burnt, how many times do you keep going back to it? And don't get me wrong, I'm just like the next person. I would be so happy to see Ronaldo back. I think everyone would, right? Everyone would be. It's a fairy tale story. It's what we all want to see, but there are so many different permutations to this, really, at this point. You know, the Pogba situation alone, right? Pogba for Ronaldo. What are United getting the other way? Because I don't want it to be a straight swap. I don't want that to be a straight swap. I want some money. I want some money for that. You have to, you know, weigh up the ages as well. Yeah, you have to weigh up the ages, because if it's a straight swap, I understand the commercial side of things, and I know Edward was all about the commercial side of things. He was all about that almighty dollar. I get that, but it's also about what you can do on the pitch. And for me, don't get me wrong, I still think Ronaldo comes to the Premier League, still can be one of the best players in the Premier League. He's one of the best players of all time. Of course, he's going to be one of the best players in the Premier League, but he's in a Juventus team at the moment that's 12 points off the top, something like that. And that's the Juventus team that's dominated. That's absolutely dominated Serie A for nearly 10 years or something like that. And we struggle with it's Cavani, whether it's Martial, whether it's whoever's up front. And that's what Ronaldo would be at this point, a striker. He would be a striker. We struggle to give them service. Who's to say we'd have to give Ronaldo service? This isn't the Ronaldo of 10 years ago that can glide past players or has got a bit of skill to go past players. He needs service. So if he's going into a more competitive league, maybe a tougher team which doesn't have as much service, I wonder, not to disrespect Ronaldo, of course, the almighty, but, you know, I wonder what we get out of that. And then on top of it, the story alone, how many times have we heard that? How many times have we heard that? It's an eye roller. You hear it and okay.
It does. It is one of them. I mean, Ricky, do you see it the way Owen says it? A lot of people saying hello to the new guy. The new guy is called Owen. Big up to Owen. If you're just joining us.
I'll just be new guy. Or
new guy. We'll go with new guy. Yeah, there you go. Yellow bathing suit says, good to see you, Jay, and Alex as well. That's good to see. But Rick, how do you see the Ronaldo thing? I mean, you're always about get it, give it, players doing the right things. Would you have Ronaldo back?
First of all, well played, Owen. Fantastic debut, mate. You've made some absolutely fantastic points.
Yeah, I'll leave now. It's done. That's the best I can do.
Absolutely fantastic points. Obviously, the age difference, there'd have to be money. There'd have to be quite a lot of money, I think, our way. I really do. So I don't see that happening in that respect. But then when it comes, as well as Owen's just said, with Ronaldo relying on service these days, whoever's playing, I know it happened for us yesterday, but different games, long periods of games, games in succession, we're not creating enough chances, are we? So whether Ronaldo could come into our team and not get very many chances, let alone very many goals. So it's an interesting point, and always just made them all perfectly.
Jay, how do you see the situation? Is it something that you'd romanticize with, or are you saying, like in true Jay fashion, do me a favor, no chance?
Look, it's one of those questions where are you led by your heart or by your head? My heart says 100% you bring back Ronaldo. He's 36, but has the physicality of a 30-year-old. Ronaldo is a supreme athlete, and I've got no doubt he'd come back for us, irrespective of service, and still score a minimum of 25 goals a season in all competitions. I reckon you're still going to up from Ronaldo. Then you have the question: Ronaldo comes in. He's like top man at Juventus. He's always been a top man everywhere he's went. He's going to want to take his free kicks. He's going to want to take penalties. So then, are we then getting Bruno Fernandes nose out of joint?
But Bruno does it for Portugal. He knows that Ronaldo's the god. If Ronaldo comes, he is Portugal. If he came back to United, would it be he's United? Bruno step aside.
Yeah, and then the big question is then I don't have the confidence in Woodward or Matt Judge to negotiate that deal. Ronaldo's wages, what would it be on? Say ballpark 450,000 per week. It's got to be
450. Yeah, it's got to be 400.
So
plus.
presently, we're paying David De Gea 375. If we can't offload David De Gea to the likes of Paris Saint-Germain, that's still in the wages book. Cavani's on 200,000. Does he stay? Jury's out. And then we have Paul Pogba's wages. Does he stay? So financially, the numbers don't add up. And as you rightly said, Woodward is a numbers man, but maybe they see, obviously, the marketability in Asia and other markets for like Ronaldo. So in this context, I'm going to put out there, I go with my heart and bring Ronaldo back. It's the perfect last stand story. Is it not? Ronnie back. 2 years in contact. It's a perfect last stand story.
It would be great. It would be great. And before I come to Alex, I'm just going to get these super chats out. Nick P says, I don't want Ronaldo back. What are we, Miami FC? I love the man and enjoyed every minute we had with him, but let's not keep living off nostalgia. Very interesting there. Ronald Jacob says, we got Flex, Keane, Cavani, Ricky, and Phil Jones. Welcome to the family. Also, Ronaldo is going to be elite as we make a player out of Ahmad. Imagine Bruno and Ronaldo linking up with Rashford. Wanting Ronaldo there. And Mahmood says, how does KG and Jay's promise of doing the show naked go if we do a straight swap for Pogba? I don't think that, because it's more likely that Ronaldo comes in and us winning the league this year. I think they'll probably stay away from that one. And Martin Louis says, I'd rather we buy CR7 to replace Cavani. Imagine CR7 alongside Paul Pogba, Bruno, Rashford, and Greenwood. Back to reality. Alex, what are you saying on this? And everyone else, feel free to chime in off the back of it. What are you saying, Alex?
Everyone's taking it from the Ronaldo perspective, but I'm looking at it more from the Pogba perspective. That there's not a prayer I would give away. Arguably our best player, if not our second best player, for someone that old that his better years are behind him. While we're at it, shall we then give Bruno to AC Milan to get Zlatan to come back as well? It just seems absolutely nonsensical to me. We saw yesterday the performance he did, how massive of a gap we will find if we actually lose Pogba. I'm starting to think we won't sell him in the summer, even if it is for like 40 million or something. Like, we're not going to get like what KG's saying, like 60, 70 for him. With 1 year left, we're not. So I think he'll go on a free the following summer, but in that 1 year's time, you don't know if we could maybe prove to him in that time that we are willing.
You think Pogba's going to go on a free next year?
Yeah, well, that's what Kev said, and I agree with him. Because I don't see us selling him for that cheap. And I think in the meantime, we'll, number one, try to convince him. But number two, you have to think, if we offer him a new contract that's like 450k, 500k, something like that, it's still going to work out cheaper than having to buy a replacement to replace Pogba. Because he will be so expensive to replace. And even if we do replace it, how many players out there are there that can do the stuff he does? I saw us linked to Milinkovic-Savic, who was who we were first linked with to replace Pogba back in... It might have even been before we got Pogba, but you remember that one World Cup, just before that World Cup, that we were linked with him. But in terms of Ronaldo, instead of Cavani, like, he might do a marginally better job, and he would stay fitter longer, I can assume that, but I would take him back, but not in a hope in hell over Pogba.
Sidant says the funny thing is that United will get linked with Haaland and Kane, and then Lord Ed Woodward will end up selling Cavani and signing Mandzukic on loan. Oh my God. Imagine that. And Arkan UK says a case of losing Pogba for free next year or swapping for Ronaldo this year. Surely the decision is clear. Would be priceless for the young lads. So you know what? This has actually surprised me a little bit, Owen, because although it's a kind of, like you said, it's a roll your eyes thing, but a lot of people are actually maybe entertaining the fact of what it would actually look like if he was back, saying, imagine him linking up with Bruno, instead of actually, like, more so what you said, like it's kind of like a flippant thing.
Yeah, it's a couple of things about it. I mean, going back to, for the Pogba perspective, right? What does Pogba get out of that? I mean, it's not as if he's going into a Juventus team of a couple of years ago that's maybe got a chance of winning Champions Leagues, because they're nowhere near. They're just as close as United of winning the Champions League, which isn't that close at the moment. So it's not as if he's going to a Juventus side of a couple of years ago that's dominating the league. They're 12 points off. Does Pogba think he's going to go into Juventus? He's going to be the difference of 12 points? I don't know. I think there's a lot more work than just Pogba in there going to Juventus. I think from the flip side of it, for Ronaldo coming to us, obviously, like I said, there's a nostalgia part of it. There's a commercial side of it, all that kind of stuff. But I look at it from Ronaldo. Is he going to win us the league? With that kind of investment, you'd be hoping that's a player that can get us close. And I don't know if I really don't know if that gets us any closer to winning the league, to be honest. I think there are bigger issues to solve there, and again, it's the longevity side of things. And I think the reason people entertain it is because we know it's almost like the ticking time bomb, isn't it, when it comes to Pogba? The contract's running out. We're panicking. It's transfer season. When it's United and transfers, we panic. But I just think cooler head should prevail on this one. I think, we mentioned about, heart or your head. Again, until there's something more concrete as well, it's just, again, as a United fan, I just feel like I've had my fingers burnt so many times, because there have been a couple of times where we really did think it was close when he left Real Madrid, right? There was those rumors going, actually, United were offered and they said no because they'd been burnt so many times, and he ends up leaving. But I just think it's so complex. It's so complex, and it's so complex to look into, and possibly it might be nothing anyway. So
yeah,
I see
what you're saying.
Sorry, I was just going to say, you say getting closer to the league if we sign Ronaldo, but likewise, if you give away Pogba at the same time, it's like one step forward, two steps backwards anyway.
Yeah.
So would we get closer to the league missing Pogba, considering who would then come in?
Well, and also
that's
creativity. That's creativity, isn't it?
Exactly. We complain about not being able to create chances as it is.
That goal that Cavani got disallowed, which was nonsense, by the way, that's a Pogba pass. That's That's the exact same kind of goal that Ronaldo is going to score. Yeah, exactly. That's a Pogba pass. So who replaces that? I mean, maybe Fred, is it? He's highly dynamic. Exactly. So who's going to replace
guys?
Pogba?
I think it'd be very interesting if we got the free seats. Simply comment Pogba or Ronaldo. You got one choice. Who do you pick? Just out of interest, it'd be interesting to see what we get back from that.
Absolutely. Ronald Jacobs says a question for the panel. Do you want 60 million for Pogba? 60 mil for Pogba that we know our owners will keep, or a swap deal for Ronaldo? Ronaldo is the way to go. Rick, would you want 60 million for Pogba that you don't think maybe would get reinvested back into the team, or would you just do a straight swap if it was on the cards?
60 million for Pogba, as what I see of Pogba playing like he played yesterday, I wouldn't take 60 million for Pogba. But what I've got to put forward is this. In every big game we play, McTominay and Fred play in centre midfield, which is Pogba's best position. Pogba does... Look, whether we agree with it or not, it's a fact that it's in the manager's mind that when we play... If we were playing in the Europa League final tomorrow, who would play in centre midfield for us? It would be McTominay and Fred. Does anybody disagree with that?
Yeah, it would under Rolly, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
It would be McTominay and Fred. Bruno would be at number 10. So then it's a case of where do we fit Pogba into the team? So we're talking about a player here. Look, if you can try and put his name to the back of your mind, try and ignore who it is, it's like he's a bit part player. He's not getting into the team where he should play. So we're going to put him into the team where we can fit him into the team, if you like. So it fits him into the team like he did yesterday on the left wing, which happens quite left wing, left midfield, whatever you want to call it. but it's in the place of Marcus Rashford. So I touched on this with you, Flex, on my fan cam, didn't I? And so Marcus has to play on the right, where Marcus is not really comfortable playing on the right. So you've got to take, when you're talking about selling a player, it's okay having your own opinions, but you have to think about what the manager is going to do with that player. So going forward, obviously they're young enough. McTominay and Fred is his preferred central midfield pair. Bruno's at number 10. Do you want Pogba playing on the left wing for us? Or would you sell him for 60 million quid and keep Rashford on the left wing? That's what you've got to ask yourselves.
But don't
Ricky,
you think if we signed it...
Sorry.
I was just
on that, okay? Sorry, Alex. Okay, on that. I would argue Pogba's best years, best production, best play was when he played for Juventus. I don't believe we've got the same level of productivity and creativity from Pogba that we saw at Juventus. And I did some research today, right? When he played the first season under Conte, that was in a 3-5-2 formation, with the two overlapping wing backs. And so he was playing in midfield 3, and obviously he had Pirlo sitting behind him, and then himself, Din and Vidal were given license to roam forward. In the second season under Conte changed to a 3-4-3, and the Italians call the position a mezzala, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. What that means, I'm quoting here directly from the article, which is in France Football, it's a false winger that drifts to the flanks. So I would argue the formation that Pogba has been shoehorned into right now, Ricky, this 4-2-3-1, doesn't suit him, because behind him he's got Fred and McTominay, and he's been shoehorned to the left. But that being said, yesterday on the left, he was drifting in centrally the odd time. He actually had a great game out there on the left. I just put it out there. I think
so. Really, what we're saying,
Jay, I agree with you. I agree with you that he had a great game there. I'd like to point out that against AC Milan in the second leg, bear in mind we had to win that game. And I know AC Milan are not AC Milan of 15 years ago, but we had to win that game. It's a tough away game. We brought him on at half time. In the first half, we weren't playing well. But second half, he come on the left wing, and we played well in the second half. He played on the left wing. Let's call it left wing for what it is. If you've got two central midfield players, McTominay and Fred, and you've got another midfield player slightly into the left, you could call it inside left, you could call it left half, you could call it left wing. But Pogba is playing wide to the left. He played well in Milan for half a game, and the football, let's be honest, does anybody disagree that we played better football in that half than we did in the first half? Does anybody disagree that certainly for the last hour of the game yesterday, we played better football than we've been playing recently?
Ricky, the football I saw in second half yesterday was the best football since that League Cup game against Everton, I would argue.
I can't agree with you more, Jay. Can't agree with you more.
Hold on a minute. Oh, sorry, just quickly. Sorry. What's going on here? Because Ricky and Jay are agreeing with everything. This isn't how this is supposed to go.
I know. This is beautiful.
Because we are agreeing on tactics. Because Ricky is a proper football man. He knows his football. I'm watching football, 20 odd years. Ricky's watching longer than I. We know what we're looking at. We're not going to agree on everything, and we disagree. But when it comes to tactics and formations, this man knows his stuff, and so do I.
And are you saying, though, that we should go to the formation that I've been saying we should go to for ages? That was the best football we played under Ali as well. Yeah. And that's what I was going to say to Rick before about, do you not agree, like on the Pogba subject and with McFred, that if we signed a class CDM, then that would alleviate a lot of the problems anyway? Because at the moment, they do one person's job. If we had like a world-class player in that number 6 position, then it would allow Bruno to drop a bit deeper and then Pogba, so they were both 8s.
Which basically is what Pogba was used at Juventus in the 4-3-3.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm just going to get these super chats out here, guys. Yellow Bathing Suit says, is Owen Draughty Devil? Owen, can you confirm?
Owen, are you me? Are you me? Are you me? I need to know. No. Okay, that's fine. No, it's fine.
They are two separate people.
I'm his twin.
Damn it!
Chris Pankhurst says, swapping Pogba for Ronaldo is a bad move. Man United midfield is weak already, and lose Pogba, we would weaken even more. Ronaldo instead of Cavani, even at 550k. Mahmood said, with the last year of a contract, will Judge and Murto get any good deals for Pogba? Ronaldo swap might be the best for us, given their inadequacy. And Oliver C says, if we had a proper CDM, Pogba would be playing, not McFred. Same could be said for Van der Beek if Pogba leaves. Just to kind of move away from the Ronaldo situation, because I think we're kind of going on to another topic there, and we'll get back to you there, Rick, with what we're saying, which is almost like a Pogba conundrum, because we're basically saying, where does he play? Because Rick's right. If we had our most important game of the season tomorrow, Pogba wouldn't play in the two under this manager, in this system. I said it yesterday against Tottenham. The reason why, it was quite easy. Mark was saying, why do you think he's not playing? I said, the reason why Pogba's not playing in there is simple. Ollie doesn't trust him to work hard enough. It's simple as that. With how Ollie wants to play. Whether you think that's right or wrong, that's what's happening, because time and time again, McFred are always in there for the biggest games. But Ollie is also going, I'll tell you what, Pogba still has to play in this team. Like, we're a better player, we're a better team with him in it, especially if he's playing like he did. So he shoehorns him in either on the left or the right. But before we come back to finish off on the Ronaldo thing, I agree with what Chris Pankhurst just said there. I don't trust this board if they swap them to do anything else. The problem is, like Owen said at the top of the show, you can't just get Ronaldo and stick him up front in this current team. And then on top of that, Paul Pogba's not even there. And then on top of that, I kept saying, if people want Paul Pogba to leave, that's fine. It's your opinion. But you have to bear in mind that we need a central defensive midfielder, right? Alongside Paul Pogba. If we can't replace Paul Pogba with a CDM, and we can't replace Paul Pogba with a striker, if Paul Pogba leaves, we've got to go and get another player like Paul Pogba, another attacking midfielder, and would still need a CDM. Yes, you could argue that Donny might step up to the plate and stuff, but I've got my reservations about playing Donny that deep in a two-man pivot. I don't really want to see him there. I think he's better than that. I don't think that suits his game. I just think Pogba, really, this is actually a compliment to Paul Pogba, because what we're saying is that he's that good when he's on form. He can actually affect the game from near enough anywhere. Is defensive midfield his best position that deep? Probably not. But his range of passing and his eye for a pass, he can play there in some games. Is his best position left wing? Maybe arguably now we've seen it, but you wouldn't normally say as a left winger that's his best position. Like what Ricky said, the inside left channel is it. So I don't know. I just think that if we did get Ronaldo, I think it would be for all the wrong reasons. I think they're trying to appease the fans. It'd be shirt sales galore, which would be amazing. We'd all get sucked in because Ronaldo is coming back, which, don't get me wrong, like Owen said, would be amazing for the spectacle. But what would it really mean for the team? You can't just stick Ronaldo up front at 30, whatever he is, and say, do everything like you used to. It isn't that anymore, not in this squad. But Ricky, back to you. I know you were trying to finish off on a point there about Pogba. Is it a Pogba conundrum then, basically? Because you're basically saying that he doesn't even play in the team all the time, and then Ollie's trying to shoehorn him in, and then you can see how good he can play in that position. So what do we do?
I'm sorry to put it like this, so obviously Pogba's a fantastic footballer, but whether you like it or not, he doesn't get into our team. Whether this isn't my opinion, by the way, this is a fact.
Yeah,
I think he does, just not in the midfield. I think he'd just be shooting.
I've not finished. I haven't finished, Jay.
Okay,
He doesn't get into our team in his favoured position. Now that's the manager's choice. The manager's choice is McTominay and Fred. You watch France play, and it's Kante and Pogba. Do you understand where I'm coming from here? So why? If you're a world-class footballer, let's think of some world-class football players who play central midfield. Let's take Roy Keane. Let's take Deschamps for France when they won the World Cup. They're in that position. They're not getting shifted out of that position, and nobody's taking their place in that position. Whoever wants to come and challenge them, they're not taking them out of that position until they're 32, 33, 34 or whatever it might be. But Paul Pogba is not dominating a position in our team. This is the manager's choice. It's not my opinion. It's a fact.
It's true.
Now, whether you agree that the manager's right or not, that's fine. That's up to you. But as far as our manager is concerned, Paul Pogba basically He's not Roy Keane. He's not Didier Deschamps. He's not Kante for Chelsea when they won the league. He's not getting in the team in the position that is his position, which he dominates for France, who have won the World Cup. You know, if we were to play Liverpool tomorrow, it'll be McTominay and Fred. You know,
actually, Ricky, on that World Cup, right? I knew we were going to discuss Pogba, so I did some research on it. The first game of that World Cup, Deschamps, they beat Australia very narrowly, and he played a 4-2-3-1. And he got flagged off in the French media for it. I remember covering the match for radio. Then for every other game, he dropped Dembele and Tolisso, went 4-3-3, and then brought in Matuidi and Giroud. So it was Matuidi, Kante, and Pogba at 3. They win the World Cup. So there you go, guys.
Yeah. So basically, what we're saying is, okay, if you skim it down, Owen. Ricky made some great points there. Actually, let me just read out the super chats just very quickly. Artero says, if only Oli knew how Van der Beek can be good at central midfield, Pogba and Ronaldo is perfect. And let's not pretend Pogba plays consistently good, which is kind of what Ricky was touching on as a more matter of fact than opinion. He is better than the rest, but still not worth his wages based on consistency. Interesting point there. And another super chat here from Saif. Saif says, I think Ronaldo is a weak investment to send the current quality that Pogba in the opposite direction. He's on great form on the wing and must be kept. Great to hear Jay and Ricky's viewpoint. Yeah, I hear that. Owen, back to you. With what Ricky's saying is that he's not getting picked. What we're saying here and what Jay brings into it is that when we've seen Paul Pogba play best, let's just say in his career, is when he's in a 3-man midfield. Whether it's for France, Juventus, at United, is that a fair comment, or is it Oli? Is it down to Oli?
There's a couple of things I think. I think first of all, when it comes to his recent performances, you mentioned Milan, you mentioned Spurs at the weekend, where he actually affects the game, he plays well. It's mentality difference. It's a difference in mentality. We're chasing the game against Milan. We have to win, so we have to attack. Suddenly, Paul Pogba plays better. We're not being defensive. We're not trying to play slow. We're not doing anything like that. The same again at Tottenham at the weekend. We're 1-0 down. We've got to attack the game. We know Josie's going to park the bus, so we're actually being a bit progressive. And look, and Pogba suddenly starts playing well because that's his game. I think when it comes to the France situation, is he better when he plays for France? I understand what Ricky's saying, and it's a valid point that he does play all the time for France, but let's face it, he's surrounded by better players when it comes to France. He's surrounded by better players. If we had, as we mentioned, a quality central defensive midfielder, you know, like a level of a Kante, I don't think Oli would have as much of a problem trusting Pogba because he knows his partner is going to, if necessary, bail him out or do the running that he needs to do or sweep up or whatever. I don't know. He doesn't trust Pogba, but maybe he doesn't trust, whilst he does trust Fred and McTominay to play, maybe he doesn't trust them enough or their quality enough to bail Pogba out if he is playing in a 3 or something like that. I think that would be a concern for Oli as well. It's not just about not trusting Pogba. It's sometimes not trusting the quality of the player around him as well. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that. I don't know if that's a fair comment.
No, that's a good point. That's you know what? That's another interesting topic because actually you look at the whole reason why Oli plays McTominay and Fred is because it's almost like he doesn't trust just one of them to do that job. He kind of needs a hybrid, a little bit of McTominay's height and power with a little bit of Scott's tenacity, Fred's tenacity to get round the pitch. It's kind of like mixed in together. So is then the argument we need to sign a player to unleash Pogba? But then what the Pogba critiques would say is if he's that damn good, which is kind of what Ricky was touching on, it doesn't matter who with. But you're right, he is in a way better team at France. Jay, what say you?
It's been said in some quarters that I can't remember the sources that basically, okay, in my opinion, he plays Fred and McTominay are front of the back 4 because Lindelof and Maguire, in my opinion, aren't good enough defenders. I think we can discuss Maguire and Lindelof all night. I believe as a pairing, they don't work. Therefore, he won't play 4-3-3. He doesn't trust them as a pairing. So he has to protect them by playing 2 in front of him. That's the first thing I say. Next thing, whenever Pogba plays beside either Matic, Fred, or McTominay, Solskjaer knows he won't get the same work rate. And it's been said in some outlets because Solskjaer knows he won't get the work rate from Paul Pogba. Now, you're a professional athlete in any sport. I would have thought work rate was a prerequisite. And let's play devil's advocate here. What do you think of that, guys? But you're in any sport, work rate should be your basic, simple requirement. But Pogba, you don't get work rate from Pogba if he's in a 3 or 2. It's just that's the kind of player he is.
He has got to a World Cup, got to a Champions League final and stuff. I feel like the work rate thing is a lot to do with like his style of play and how he moves around the pitch. It just looks like he's jogging a lot more. Like there was that stat that came out when they were doing the first in everything and stuff, and he was like top in like distance covered.
I think he just needs. Yeah. I think he needs someone next to him to do a lot of running for him though.
I do.
Like when 100%. Like when we've seen the best of Paul Pogba. Alongside Matuidi, who's got a great set of lungs, who's going to do it. Done it for him at France as well. Brought in Vidal. We know what an animal he is. He runs about. You look at the France team. Kante, that's all we need to say. And Matuidi. You look how much running you've got there. And then in our team, it's like you're playing him with one other instead of 1 and 2 others who do loads of running. So I'm just trying to look for common themes. Is that maybe a common theme, Alex?
It's a spot on point because the best, well, in my opinion, he's played at United was when Ollie first came in and you had Matic holding and then Herrera. Herrera's
work rate.
So then basically we've got there then. What we're saying is, which is what Ollie's been saying all along, is that like, Pogba is a fantastic player. I agree 100%. He is unbelievable. And on his day, he is world class. But there has to be a reason why, when you look at when he's playing best, you look at the functionality around him, and it's something that we can't quite give him. You know what I mean? I don't know, because Bruno, like Ricky says a lot, I don't even see Bruno as a midfielder anymore. Like he is Pro Evolution SS second striker. Yeah, if you're young enough, if you're old enough to know, you know about Pro Evolution Soccer and the SS. That's what he is. Not a cam. He shouldn't be, but not a central attacking midfielder, not a number 10. How many times have I seen Bruno, the furthest man forward, initiating a press? Like he just works in the final third. Don't get me wrong; he's got a great set of lungs and will work really hard. So you will see him back at the edge of the box, running around everywhere. He has that mentality, but more time than not, he is an attacker. Like he's not a midfielder, the way we use him. So then you only got really McTominay only or Fred if you play Pogba, who's going to be the one to kind of run around and do that job. So maybe that's what it is. Rick, how do you see that if we arrive at that before we move on?
The players that are around you are absolutely vital. Look, it's so important that you've got good players around you. It's just unbelievable how important it is, and the fact that they do their jobs correctly. So when Pogba is playing, whether he's going to play central midfield or whether he's going to play more an attacking midfield, you've still got to have the right players around you doing that job. I had a little look at Liverpool's. I hate bringing Liverpool up, but look, they won. They got 99 points. Was it last season? They got 99 points. It was the second most. It's the second highest amount of points ever in the Premier League. They're two. I looked at the players that played the most games in each position, and the two midfield players who played the most games were Henderson and Fabinho. Now, they might be better players, but they do the job the same as McTominay and Fred. Do you understand where I'm coming from with that? They're not attacking players.
Yeah, the energy, the work rate, the tenacity. Yeah,
they are. They're doing the same job as McTominay and Fred. They might do it better. That's fine if they do it better. That's why they've done what they've done. Yeah. But Fabinho and Henderson are McTominay and Fred. They played, I've forgotten now exactly, but something like 24 and 26 games each, something like that. But the player in midfield who played something like 36 games out of 38 was Wijnaldum. Wijnaldum played nearly every match. He's the man who's playing in Pogba's place, in Bruno's place in our team. Wijnaldum. Most United fans will say, I don't want him. I'd sooner have Bruno. But he played 36 games in a team that got 99 points in that position. He's the attacking player of those three players. right? So where would Pogba fit? Pogba would probably fit perfectly into Wijnaldum's place, and because he's got Fabinho and Henderson next to him, so that's part of the reason why we need McTominay and Fred. They might not be quite as good as Fabinho and Henderson. Some United fans might argue that they're better. But why are they getting 99 points and we're getting 70 points or whatever?
Well, but that is down to a lot of other stuff, though. Like in terms of the way they, and the way they play. Wijnaldum is not the 10. Wijnaldum is not like the ultimate furthest forward all the time, where Bruno is number 10, like a David Silva number 10 or whatever. He's in a straight 3, and that's what I'm talking about. Maybe in order to accommodate Paul Pogba, and that's what Alex is kind of talking about, maybe have an actual functioning 3-man midfield with Pogba, Bruno, and one other. I know that's not the same makeup of 2 runners and say 1 flair, but just to try and, because that's where Pogba's been playing the best football, when he's in a 3-man midfield. Alex? Anyone?
Could Bruno not just be like, he isn't like the very, very top of defensive, but in terms if you want a runner, Bruno runs his socks off all games. I just think that I think I've said it on the show before, if not, I've said it on Twitter, is that when we first signed Bruno, that his ex-coach was saying that we're wasting him playing him at number 10 because he's a number 8. And he's not, like you said, he's not even a 10. He's a shadow striker with how far. And Ollie's even actually said in press conferences when they say blah, 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 midfielder, like in regards to him, and he's like, midfielder, don't you mean striker? And he actually calls Bruno a striker. But I just feel like we waste some of his attributes, like his passing and stuff. And he would just be better played deeper, in my opinion. And you could have then, if you're saying it about in terms of Liverpool, that, yeah, Pogba could be the Wijnaldum and then Bruno can do the Henderson role. Because you have to bear in mind as well, not Fabinho, but Henderson's better going forward than both those two. And like I just say, I think it blows my mind that I don't know where KG got the source, but how he says that we've come out and said that a defensive mid isn't a priority, when to me that should be our absolute number 1 priority, because it would just solve so many issues. I think it seems weird to say it, but I think it would help with our creativity if you swapped to that formation, and then just with Bruno and Pogba being in those different positions, rather than Bruno basically essentially playing a 4-4-2 at the moment, because he's always as high up as like Martial, Cavani, Greenwood, whoever's up front.
I'm just going to read these super chats out. Oliver H says the best thing to do is for us to buy Bissouma. He is the most similar thing that there is to Kante. That will help Pogba and the whole team instead of McFred, and he probably won't cost half as much as some of the other ones we're trying to go after. Davey Fisher says, say that again, Rick.
Load of rubbish. Bissouma's a fantastic player. Bissouma's a fantastic player, but you've still got to have 2 players doing that job. Like Henderson and Fabinho, like McTominay at Fred, you can't do it on your own.
But do you not think if Bruno dropped deeper that he could help it with that regard? If you signed
someone and played in that role, of course, but you do need somebody who's going to play in that role. And to say to Bruno, drop deeper and do that, it's a little bit like shoehorning somebody into the team, like we've been supposedly shoehorning Pogba onto the left wing. And when we shoehorn Pogba onto the left wing, we shoehorn Rashford onto the right wing. So if we were to sign Bissouma and put him in McTominay's place or Fred's place, you still need McTominay or Fred next to him. It's no good just putting Bruno next to him or Pogba next to him.
But you wouldn't be shoehorning Bruno in, because he doesn't play how we play him for Portugal, and he never played like that for Sporting. It's just something that Ollie came up with and be like, oh, I think he'd be good as this like striker type person.
He can play there. There's a myth that Bruno can't play there.
It was literally his main
he does
position.
play there.
Look, possibly it could happen, but
I think at the moment. Sorry, Ricky, I'm cutting across you. My apologies. Say if we will shift next season to a 4-3-3, that I think most of us are in agreement that we want to see. The problem is at the moment we're still a Fred there, and I see nothing more than a poor man's Matuidi. So even if we got Declan Rice, which I don't believe will happen, and we play Fred, Pogba, Rice in a 3, we still have a poor man's Matuidi sitting there in Fred, which I don't think will still work. Thoughts?
That's what I'm saying. That if we sign Rice, couldn't we just play Pogba on the left centre mid, Bruno on the right centre mid, and then Rice at the 6?
Is there enough energy in that team? Is it going to work hard enough in midfield? I'm not.
Look, you've got to have two proper midfielders, like they've got Fabinho and Henderson. You know, we've got McTominay at Fred. Whoever's going to play in those two positions, that's why Pogba's playing on the left wing. That's why. Bruno's playing at number 10. Then we've got a number 9, and whoever we play on the right, whether it's Greenwood, whether it's Rashford, whether it's Dan James. So you've got to have two players who are prepared to do the dirty work. One cannot do it.
I agree.
But Owen, with what Rick's saying there, actually, let me just get these super chats out finally. Davey Fisher says Pogba has played out of position the majority of his career. He's by far our best player. We'd be a far better team if he was given free role and Bruno was right mid. Interesting. Put Bruno out on the wing. And Pragesh says, guys, Owen reminds us what many people have forgotten. Pogba thrived and got his £80 million price tag next to Pirlo. He needs a Pirlo to work. Pirlo, period, basically saying like he needs a player like that to get the best out of him. And another super chat here says the best thing for us to... Oh, no, we've read that one already. And I'm sure there was one more. No, we're good. Owen, with what Rick's saying there, you got to have two players to run and do that job. I just to throw to you, I look at how City played when they was in their prime. Well, they're still in their prime. But when David Silva was there, and they had David Silva, De Bruyne, and one holding, which was Fernandinho at the time. Then Rodri started coming into it. That's two attacking. That's like 2 8s and 1 6, which would maybe contradict what Ricky's kind of projecting. Would that show that in a specific system, depending on what players you got, you can do it the other way around? Or is it like what Ricky said, you've got to have two doing the running?
It depends, but you have to remember with that City team, they had a great defence behind that. That's fine having those holes in the midfield and being very progressive, but it's fine knowing that something's behind you that can actually protect you of a good defence. If our defence is exposed, we've seen what happens if our back two, if Lindelof, Maguire are exposed. We can see goals. It's as simple as that. And I agree with what Ricky's saying, that you do need two guys to put in, the dirty work. You do need guys to throw in the tackles. If it was a 3 of, say hypothetically, was Rice, don't think it will be, but say it was Rice and say it was Pogba and Fernandes, I don't know if there's enough bite in there. I don't want to see Bruno Fernandes, trying to win the ball back, making tackles. I want to see him higher up on the pitch. We've seen what happens when he's higher up the pitch. He makes things happen. He makes goals. I agree with what Ricky's saying, that, sometimes, especially again, you have to realize that the league we're in is competitive as well. Are we going to go up against, say, a full-strength Liverpool or a Man City and have only maybe one person that's only going to be throwing in tackles? We'd get overrun immediately. And if we don't improve our defence, it's going to be a really ugly picture very, very quickly. So I understand what people are saying. And I take the point that Bruno, it's almost it's a myth that he has to play, as a 10 and all that kind of stuff. Like he's ever played in midfield before. But we've seen what works with him. We've seen what works for him. We're talking about Pogba playing to people's strengths. Why would we take away maybe Bruno's strength? Bruno's strength is being higher up the pitch. And
but he's done that at Sporting, though. Check his numbers at Sporting.
But those are different levels. Those are different levels. Let's be honest. Those are different levels.
That's what people were saying before we signed him, and then he came to the league and instantly replicated the levels. We don't know.
But in a different role. Because he's higher up on the pitch.
With how good Bruno's passing range is if he has more players in front of him, he'd be able to pick out more passes so our strikers wouldn't be as starved of service.
I mean, but who would you say if you say then that it's going to be, say, Bruno, Pogba, and someone? I don't know. Rice probably isn't the option, but so who's the three then that you would have up there if we were going 4-3-3?
What, the front three?
Yeah,
Rashford, Cavani, Greenwood at the moment.
And what? And Greenwood out on the right,
and not Dan James.
So you've just spoken about having a front three, right? No matter who it is, I know I prefer Dan James, and I know laugh about that. But no matter who it is, you're not including any of your midfield players there, like Pogba or Bruno, are you? You're talking about 3 forwards, aren't you? So you're going to have 3 forwards, and then who? You've got to have. If you're going to have 3 forwards, you can't afford to not have 2 defensive midfield players. If you're going to have 2 defensive midfield players, Bruno is going to be an attacking midfield player. Pogba doesn't get in the team, or Bruno doesn't get in the team. or Pogba has got to be one of the defensive midfield players, which the manager doesn't really trust him as being.
Jay?
But
sorry, go on.
Yeah,
Sorry, go on.
I said there a few minutes back that he doesn't trust him to play as a defensive midfield player because it's lack of work rate and lack of intensity from Paul Pogba. And I know people are probably not going crazy in the comments like you did last night when I mentioned that about Paul Pogba, but that's reality. Like, that's not his game. But it goes back to what Ricky said. It's almost like where can Solskjaer almost shoehorn Pogba into the side. And right now, if he has to play McFred as the holding two, the only place he's going to play him is out on the left, which in actual fact is where Rashford favours to play in front of Luke Shaw. So it's a conundrum. But I would argue that the problem is going forward next season, and is the 4-2-3-1. We got to change the 4-3-3 to get the best from Paul Pogba if he stays.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. I'm just putting it out there. I've watched France a couple of times in big games, and they play with Pogba and Kante. So in other words, Pogba and Kante are McTominay and Fred. So it's all right talking about work rate. For France, I don't think Pogba gets caught. It's not about working hard. It's about being in your position and not running all over the show. When he plays,
but okay, Ricky, I agree with you on that point. But for France, the key catalyst there is Kante is beside Paul Pogba. Paul Pogba doesn't work beside McTominay or Fred or Matic because none of them are good enough.
I know Kante's a great player. He really is. But for physicality, speed, strength and effort, don't tell me he out-physicality Scott McTominay because I'm not having it.
No, but McTominay probably wouldn't get near him a lot, though.
No, and
it's the type of player that you're talking about. Kante's a great player. A great player. But Scott McTominay for a partner for Pogba, I don't think it'd be much different.
Come on, man! It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's been proven not to work. Anytime for me, and I'd go on the eye test. Pogba beside Fred, Matic, or McTominay, it has not worked.
But that's because they're not good enough, not because Pogba isn't, though.
That's my point. They're not good enough. But when he plays with France, he's got Kante, who is a world-class CDM, which we need to buy.
That myth was exposed. Everyone was saying in the run-up
Kante is a different level. I do agree with that. But I just think in the Premier League, you give me look. We are second in the league. We're 6 points behind.
So McTominay and Fred ain't that bad then. What are we talking about?
We're 16th in the league or something. You know what I mean?
That criticism was Ricky about Kante, and then in the World Cup final, Kante got injured and Pogba got man of the match. So, and that was against a world-class midfield of Rakitic and Modric. Still,
let me put it this way. We are. What are we behind City now? Oh, I'll tell you what I did see. Somebody said, do we play twice before City play next?
I don't know.
I think we play twice before City play next. If we win those two games, we will be 5 points. They'll have a game in hand, but we could be 5 points behind.
Ricky, don't start this.
It's not over.
Ricky.
It's not over. It's not over. Believe.
But the thing, here's my point. If we didn't have Scott McTominay and we had Kante, do you think we'd be closer?
100,000% we would be. Yes, we would. Of course we would. Yes.
Are you trying to say
absolutely.
that McTominay is better than Kante?
No, I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say that. All I'm trying to point out is City are a fantastic team. We're not that far behind them. What difference do you think one player might make? What difference do you think it might make?
Look at Bruno, what one player made.
Oh, that's a
Facts,
good one, Alex.
Facts.
That's a good one.
Look, gentlemen, presently we are 11 points behind Manchester City. Is that correct? 11 points?
Yeah, with a game in hand,
Yeah, okay, 11 points behind. Yeah, okay. So all of us here grew up watching United win titles, win Champions Leagues. We're going to be second and win, and I call it the Champions League B Cup. So what? It's not a league title. It's not a Champions League, right? So with a proper world-class centre-back beside Maguire, a proper world-class CDM, and a right winger that can supply ammunition for our forwards, we should be challenging for league titles. Second place is nothing, lads. Right? Who cares who finished second?
Jay,
Seriously.
Of
course.
I don't like cutting in, mate, but I've got to come back to what Jay just said. There's too much emphasis put on this player, that player, the other player, one player, and what difference would Kante make? And Jay said, well, what difference did Bruno make? We're in front of Chelsea. We're well in front of Chelsea. We've got Scott McTominay. They've got Kante. And Kante's not getting in their team. He comes on as a sub now and then.
Yeah, but I think that's more past it now.
So would we be better off with, is it Kovacic or Jorginho? Are they all better than Scott McTominay? Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
I've got to get these super chats out. Sorry, go on. Finish off there, Jay. Finish off.
What I'm saying is that a lot of the fan base are believing the propaganda that second is great. Second is not great. It's about winning. Sport's about winning, and we ain't winning titles. And for me, I grew up watching United win. Okay, I'm a former athlete. Okay, I've got 4 Irish titles, 2 European titles. All that matters in sport is winning. It's simple as. And we are nowhere near winning a title.
You've got 2 European titles, Jay?
Yeah.
At what?
Men's physique.
Men's physique. Wow.
Yeah.
It's
about winning. Yeah, but Ricky, my point is, sport. Okay.
Do you know what,
okay,
Jay?
Yeah.
European titles or anything. I wish
100%.
I was the best person on my street at anything whatsoever. It'd be fantastic.
Look, Ricky, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet, and don't think for a second I'm not. But who remembers who got second in the Olympic Games 100 meters or the marathon or any other event? Nobody. Who remembers who got second in the NBA Finals? Who remembers who got beaten in Super Bowl 5 years ago? You remember the winner. And we are not winning titles, and that is the standard I hold this club by: winning titles.
Yeah, but with the Glazers.
That's not the board, though. That's not what the standard the board holds it to.
I just need to get these super chats out, guys. Ingsif says, Flex City plays with inverted fullbacks to slot into the pivot next to the CDM, so we need Aaron Wan-Bissaka to do something similar in that case. And Ronit says, I agree with Alex after lockdown. Matic was CDM and Pogba was on the left and Bruno was on the right. And United played attacking and created a lot of chances. Another super chat here from Rasmus. Rasmus says, yesterday we played 4-4-2 in the second half. Rashford was more central and both Bruno and Pogba played the Mazzella role. Shaw and Pogba were brilliant. And JT online says Pogba's best strength is an attacking midfielder. Ball retention is much better than Bruno's. 4-2-3-1, McFred plus Bruno on the right. Pogba at 10 works. Guys, I want to talk a bit about Ruben Neves quickly. I want to talk about that and a little bit about the goalkeeping situation before we kind of, in the last 10 minutes of the show. I wanted to do this earlier, but the conversation was just absolutely, the Paul Pogba thing just absolutely flowed, and it was a good melting pot of opinion, and everyone at home was really enjoying it. But we have got other stuff to talk about on the show. Irfan says, big up for Jay. We need a winning mentality. Big up for that. Appreciate the contribution. And Cyan says, most Prem teams sit back against us. A lone CDM is perfect. Let Pogba and Bruno create chances against low blocks with Rice sitting in behind. And AJ says, Ricky's been to the pub today, lad. Scott McTominay is not World Cup winning material. Ricky, buddy, stop it now. We love you, but no, man, Scott McTominay is not the guy. And yeah, that's it for the super chats. Owen, Ruben Neves, £30 million. You taking him?
I mean, is that a legitimate price? Is that a legitimate price? Because I don't know. 30 million. Are Wolves going to accept that? Really?
That's what's being touted. We had to talk about it on United Stand. There's an article on there as well written by Jamie, which is great stuff, and it's exploring that he could be available for around that price, which would be crazy. I agree, but in terms of our midfield and what it needs, would you have him? What kind of impact do you could have?
It's interesting because we talk a bit about defensive midfielders. Is Ruben Neves necessarily a defensive midfielder in the sense that he's a ball winner? I would more class him more as a deep line playmaker, if you want to get into Football Manager terms. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I think against the smaller teams, when they've got a low block against us, and we do struggle to find the right pass, we do struggle to be a bit more progressive, a bit quicker. Ruben Neves is a great player for that. I mean, for 30 million, I mean, I think you would take him. 30 million, I think that's an unbelievable deal. That's an insane price. And we've seen when it comes to Jota at Liverpool that those Wolves players are ready to step up. You know, I think Wolves have had a bad season this season. Maybe that's why he's looking to make the jump. I don't know. Maybe that's why Wolves are looking to cash in. That would be a steal. That would be a steal. Maybe, like I said, I don't know necessarily if you get to one of the big games and you start getting to a point where, again, it's going, oh, where does he necessarily fit into that? Because I think against the bigger teams, it goes back to, is he necessarily going to be a ball winner? But against the teams with the low block, I mean, and to be honest, just 30 million in general, we talk about having squad depth, and you talk about City having a bench full of top quality players and players that you can bring on to change the game. Ruben Neves, is he going to play every game? I don't know. But to be honest, as a player to bring on the bench or play in those games, because Ollie only uses 15 players all season. He's a player to play at least quite a few games. So I mean, 30 million. I mean, that's a steal. That's a steal.
Alex, is that a steal for you? You having that, and where would he fit in?
Well, if we were buying him, I assume it would be to play in that deep line playmaker role. But one player who I absolutely love, and I know Mark loved as well, was Carrick, who played that deep line playmaker role. So it could be done. I think 30 million, there isn't a hope in hell of us getting him for that. But with regards to Wolves season, I think that's mainly just because, number one, they had the same issue with us in terms of lack of pre-season, because United, City and Wolves, all three had that European thing starting later than everyone and then did that. And then also the main reason is Jimenez. So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I would take him in a heartbeat, but I don't see it happening.
Rick?
I'd take Neves. I think he's a great player, yeah. I think he's a great player.
Who's he playing instead of?
Well, the problem is, well. First of all, you've got to appreciate that we chop and change the team quite a lot. So he doesn't necessarily have to play instead of somebody, if you understand what I mean. One week it could be McTominay and Neves. The next week, Fred and Neves. The next week, McTominay and Fred. So he's not really playing instead of somebody. He might be taking Matic's place, who's going to get even less game time. So you don't have to look at it like that. But I like to look at a team and think, what will our team be if we've got a massive game tomorrow? If we're playing Liverpool tomorrow in a league match, or if we're playing in the Europa League final tomorrow, what does our manager think about our team? I'm old school, like Jay, right? When we used to have Keane and Scholes in the centre of midfield, it didn't matter if we were playing a League Cup tie against a First Division team or if we were playing Barcelona. You know, we didn't consider who the opposition were. The starting players were Keane and Scholes. It's as simple as that. Yet these days, you think, it's like with Pogba. Pogba played against Brighton in central midfield. He played against Granada in central midfield. Then we played Spurs and we're back to McTominay and Fred. Do you understand where I'm coming from here?
Yeah,
so if we were to sign Neves, we might play him against Burnley. We might play him against, I don't know, Aston Villa or Wolves. But when we play Liverpool, City and Chelsea, it'll be McTominay and Fred.
So basically, Ollie's never going to move away from them two.
Yeah, I want us to get a team where we think we can win games, we can dominate football matches, and when we play against anybody, whether it's Barcelona or Bayern Munich, we don't have to think, well, against this team, we can't afford to risk that player against this team. We'll have to swap him for this player. I don't want us to have to think like that.
Ricky, just before I get your take,
I'd sign Neves without a doubt, but I don't think he'd get in our team when we were playing Liverpool.
Interesting point. Jay, I'm going to get to you. I'm just going to read the super chats. Callum says, I'm not sure about Rice as a lone DM. He's been helped by Souček. Needs someone who can do a job on their own so Pogba can go forward. And Brian says, a prime Matic does the role that McFred does do alone. What we need is a world-class CDM and centre-backs. Smoke teams for 70 minutes and have McFred for 20 minutes. Michael Vieira says the hardest thing to change in football and life is culture, mentality and development. Ollie is doing well in all of these. Pogba needs world-class defensive midfielder to work. Bruno can play as a number 8 and has done for the majority of his career. Arito says McTominay is not the best, but we are better than the rest with him in our midfield, which is what Ricky's alluding to. He deserved more respect as the stats speak for themselves. Great point by Ricky about the team with Kante behind us. And Rajan says, last season Pogba was playing great as well post-lockdown. It was happening due to playing alongside an informed Matic. So signing a proper CDM might help us in a 4-2-3-1. A lot of people saying we just need that proper CDM. And Ross Gunn says, Bissouma is definitely the better style of player. Feel he's better at driving forward and ball winning. Neves is a better passer, however. And Mahmood says, we all forgot about Van der Beek. So did Ollie, to be honest. Sell him, replace him, Pogba with him. Question marks there. Jay, just quickly, what do you think on the Ruben Neves thing before we finish off on the keepers?
Okay, first of all, from my seeing Ruben Neves this season, to me, is a box to box. I don't see him as a CDM. And back to the point everybody's made, where does he fit in the team? Is he an upgrade on Scott McTominay? Yes, he is. But I believe we already have a Neves on the bench and Donny van de Beek, which cost 40 million. Wolves paid 15.8, so maybe it's a case of Wolves just want to double their money as part of the business model and get rid of him now while he's in good form. Would I take him? Not really, because we got Donny, but who's not been played.
Yeah, so would we just get Neves and he'll get forgotten about? And like Rick said, it'll just be McTominay and Fred in the main games anyway. But as Owen said, it's 30 million bargain and it's squad depth. But then if you look at the record of that, Van der Beek was 35 million squad depth, brilliant, and we ain't seen him once.
It's not like saying squad depth, isn't it? I mean, squad
but
depth is really important, but you've got to get some use out of them. The amount of use we've had out of Donny van der Beek is a disgrace.
It is. I agree. I think everyone agrees on that. To kind of finish off, Owen, I know you've played as a keeper at a high level and been at some quite big clubs and stuff. How do you see the goalkeeper situation as a keeper yourself, and been in around the game and that? How do you see it?
Well, it was inevitable. This was always going to be a problem. This was always going to be a problem at the start of the season when you bring Henderson back and you put him on a big contract. We've always been going towards this. I just find the timing of this really odd. I find the timing really strange that we're more than 3/4 of the way through the season at this point. Why the change now? Why the change now? And my concern about it of Henderson suddenly comes in to play the Premier League games and De Gea goes into the cup games is that if that is a ramification of De Gea going to see the birth of his child in Spain, as a long-time fan of Man United, I mean, that kind of hurts me a little bit that, not that you're punished, but it kind of feels like that. I mean, you're not playing in the first team. You're not playing in the big games. It feels like you've been dropped because you went to go see your child be born. And, there's these rumours and these reports about, certain players in the dressing room. I prefer to play with Henderson. I prefer to play with De Gea and all that kind of stuff. That says something about the dressing room. If someone goes to the manager and says, I'd rather have this guy behind me, if I'm the manager, I say, get out my office. I don't care. I pick the team. It doesn't matter. We've got two quality goalkeepers here. And look, this is a situation, like I said, it's always been coming to this, but wait till the end of the season. There's a lot that can happen at the end of the season. Both guys, I would assume, are going to go to the Euros. What happens with De Gea if Spain win the Euros and De Gea doesn't concede a single goal? What happens then? Suddenly, are we all going to have Dean Henderson, out? Or we've got to get De Gea back in? It's just, I don't know. I think that, and it's become a talking point before every single game now. Before every single game, there's at least a 5-minute segment, a 10-minute segment. What do you think about Dean Henderson? What do you think about De Gea? What's he doing? Or is this the right decision? And look, I get it. It's a pressure position anyway. Playing in goal, don't get me wrong. You can, unless it's a penalty shootout, you can only be criticised sometimes. That's just the way it is. And I understand Man United, it's a pressure position. It's just the timing of it. It's the timing of it. And don't get me wrong. I think the way, if you look at the lay of the land, probably De Gea's on his way out and Henderson's going to be the number one. That looks the way it's going to happen now, right? That's what it's going to be. I like I said, as a United fan, as someone that's followed the club my whole life and believes in the morals and the ethics of the club, and it's a family club. I know you could argue that it's not with the Glazers and all that kind of stuff. You talk about Ollie being ruthless. You talk about Ollie being ruthless and all that kind of stuff. Well, you got to be ruthless. You got to have a ruthless streak. He's starving his kids because he died. All that kind of stuff, right? It's a ruthless streak. But is it ruthless to drop someone because they go to see the birth of their child? I don't think that is. I think it's frankly the opposite. It's ruthless to make mistakes, which De Gea has made. Don't get me wrong. Maybe not as much this season, but it's ruthless to drop him then. But he didn't do that. And if the reports that come out that say that, when it comes to De Gea, that, he was going to drop him, when was it, November? Is that what they said? They were going to drop him in like November or some point, and then suddenly he went, "No, don't drop me." So he didn't. That's not ruthless. That's not ruthless. So
it's the opposite, isn't it? It's giving in to the player.
I don't know. And when it comes to this, like I said, it's always been heading to this. It's inevitable, and he's had to put himself in. Ollie's put himself, and the club have put themselves in that situation. But why now? Why make it a deal now? We've still got things we want to win. I know, like we said, that second isn't a massive trophy, and the Europa League, it's the Champions League B Cup. I know, but there's still stuff to achieve, and it doesn't need to be a talking point. But they've made it one. And it just feels very unnecessary. Very unnecessary.
Jay, is it unnecessary?
Yeah, look, it's a topic we discussed in the show many, many times. And I said 2 months ago that, and I stand by it, it was media led by the English jingoistic media. When you've got two goalkeepers on combined wages of touching £500,000 per week, it was almost going in tears. And last season, to give Dean that big contract when you already have De Gea on a long contract in situ, that was purely bad business. We still have Romero sitting on 80 grand a week, is not even in the country. So it goes back to the board. The board has created this problem, and it's going to be a quagmire come this summer. Look at, obviously, Owen, you played at a very high level, a goalkeeper. You're far more versatile goalkeeper than I am. For me, I rate De Gea higher than Henderson. I don't think Henderson has done enough yet to warrant it as play number one. And I don't feel this season that De Gea has made enough. He hasn't made any howlers this season. Right. So to go to your home country for the birth of your daughter and come back and you're out of a job, essentially, that's preposterous. It's poor man management.
It is.
So,
but if you're in the dressing room, how do you react to that? How do you react to that? How do you trust the manager after that? I went to a family matter and then I can't play anymore. How can you trust someone? You know, you'd be looking over your shoulder.
That leak that came out in the media, was it last week or the week before, that he was going to be dropped for the West Brom game back in November, and then he goes to the manager and he's not dropped. So it's a bit of a kind of a Del Boy Trotter management school there, is it not?
Yeah, I do see what I mean. Ricky, are you bothered by it quickly? I know I've asked you this a few weeks ago, but now it's really developing that we can maybe see a pattern here that De Gea is probably going to play in the Europa League and Dean Henderson should see out the league. How do you see that panning out?
I take the points that the lads are saying, and it's look, as far as I'm concerned, you need a goalkeeping expert to decide between the two keepers. You've got to get it right. I'm not the person to say whether I think Henderson's better than De Gea or whether De Gea is better than.
What's your gut feeling, though, Rick? I know what you like with players, outfield players. I know you've been there and you may. But what's your gut telling you?
I would probably stick with De Gea. You've also got to say, I mean, what's the age difference? De Gea's been there a while. Henderson's a lot younger.
Yeah, he's been there over 10 years. Yeah, Henderson's only like 23, 24.
At some stage, that's going to change. So it's a really tough question, Flex. I don't know the answer to the question. You're asking me a question and I don't know the answer.
That's the first time I've ever heard Ricky say that. Just before I come to you, Alex, Ronald Jacob says, question, Ricky, answer very quickly, Ricky, Greenwood or James?
Dan James, definitely. Just very quickly. I've had a lot of people telling me that he scored a goal and he made a goal, which he did, and he was superb when he come on. And people have saying, "What do you think about that, Ricky?" I must have said on this show, must have said it 10 times. We need him coming on as a sub. We need to give him. He's a young kid. He's 19. Give him 15 and 20 minutes as a sub. We've given him 15 or 20 minutes as a sub. He scored one and made one. And people are telling me that I'm an idiot. I don't get it.
Can I ask you?
Hold on, Alex. Wait, Alex, because I know what's going. Alex, hold on 1 second. Akash said it's simple. If you can lower the wage bills for a similar keeper with long term, do it. Not this summer, maybe next after testing Hendo with the fans. And Joe H says good man management from Ollie, in my opinion. A run of games for Henderson without compromising league position. De Gea trusted for the Europa League finals. No egos affected. Do you know what? We'll scrap asking Alex about the De Gea situation because we're near the end of the show. But I know with basically Rick,
you know what I'm about
Greenwood is to Alex what Dan James and Matic and Mata are to you. That's how Alex sees it. Alex, what are you saying about Greenwood?
I was just going to ask Rick, what's your opinion? And obviously, we've had some brilliant players throughout the years and brilliant teenagers at United. So, what's your opinion on that? Greenwood has till October to score 3 goals to be Man United's highest ever Premier League goal scorer as a teenager, above the likes of Ronaldo, above Rooney, above Rashford, above Martial.
Unbelievable start, mate. It is an unbelievable start. But I go off the eye test, Alex, and this
is what I don't understand. He does everything you like.
Too often, he makes the wrong decision too often. He's not quite ready to be playing as a regular starter. He really isn't. And I honestly think you'll find that very, very shortly. He's not going to be getting us now that. Obviously, it's McTominay and Fred. Look, he's going to mess about with the team against the smaller teams. If we were playing City or Liverpool tomorrow, it's going to be McTominay and Fred. It's going to be Bruno. It's going to be Cavani. It's going to be Pogba on the left, I think, and Rashford on the right. And Greenwood will be coming on as a sub. Not that I'd have Rashford on the right, by the way. I'd have Dan James on the right. You've got to get that balance of that work rate and that effort. The fact that Rashford not tracking Son yesterday for the first goal, it was shocking. It was absolutely shocking. I know we had to come back from 1-0 down, but if Dan James was playing, we probably wouldn't have been 1-0 down.
If Dan James was playing, though, we wouldn't have won 3-1 if Dan James came off the bench over Greenwood.
Oh, no, that's a different story. That's different.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, apart from defensive quality, what do you think Dan James has over Greenwood? Because I watch it and I don't think he's better in a single attribute apart from defensive work rate. And with Man United, like Jay was saying about like the standards of going for first and stuff, you shouldn't just be focused on the defensive work rate. And that is what Greenwood has actually improved this season on his defensive work rate when he's playing down that right side.
His crossing's better.
Yeah,
he's looking to get that ball. He put that ball across yesterday instinctively. I said this morning. He put that ball across instinctively, and Cavani's really sharp. He gets onto it and scores the header, which is brilliant, and it was a brilliant ball in. But sometimes Greenwood plays at 9, sometimes Rashford plays at 9. If Greenwood or Rashford would have been playing at 9, and that ball would have come in, neither of them would have headed it in. None of them would have got on the end of it and scored that goal. So Greenwood has instinctively put a great ball into the box that the number 9 has turned into a great ball.
But did you not see that he told him, like Cavani said, like Greenwood like messed up a pass to him or something, and then Cavani was like doing that, like saying next time you get it, hit it first time, and then the next time Mason got it, and it's like what we said on the fan forum.
Rick, you can't just say, Rick, that basically like it's Cavani who's made that. Like it's a good ball. Rick.
Oh, it's a fantastic ball.
It's a great ball.
It is a fantastic ball. I've got no two ways about it.
It's not an accident. It's meant to do it.
An instinctive ball. It's an instinctive ball. It's a first time ball that somebody gives it. Was it Bruno that gave it in? And he whips it across first time. All I'm saying is so much kudos is put onto these things that happen instinctively in a game that if it was a different player who you were playing with, it would have just gone out for a goal kick. You know,
it might have gone out for a goal kick, but you would have been saying, "What a ball that flashed across the 6-yard box." That's
you forget about it. It just if it doesn't end up in the back of the net, he gets forgotten about.
I don't know. If Dan James plays that ball and it goes out for a goal kick, I think you say, "But look, he's put the ball in."
Dan James wouldn't have played that ball. What?
You just run to the corner flag.
You can't. Look, you can't quantify this. It's just the way the game develops. Greenwood's left-footed. I know he's good with his right foot, but he's left-footed.
Yeah.
Dan James is right-footed.
Yeah.
That ball was passed to Greenwood by Bruno, and it's actually on his left foot, and he's facing. He's facing into the field.
It's there for him to instep.
It's perfect there for him to hit it across. Dan James wouldn't have even hit that ball across. He's not left-footed. That's just football. There's no criticism there of Dan James, but there's also no what's the opposite to criticism?
Praise.
Praise. There's no kudos due to Mason. Let's say the exact same ball was on the other side of the field would have been played to Mason to Dan James. Dan James would have put that ball in with his right foot. So, it's just...
Dan James is not capable of playing that ball. And I would argue as well that Mason, I reckon if you were to put it to most people, they would agree that Mason's better with his weak foot than James is off his stronger foot anyway.
Against Granada the other night, right? Forget who it's against. When you're racing after the ball and there's nobody racing with you, it doesn't matter who you're playing against. Doesn't matter who you're playing against. You could be playing against Barcelona. You could be playing against Greenwood Social Club, right? There's a ball knocked towards the corner flag against Granada, and Dan James races after it like a greyhound, just reaches it about a yard before it goes out for a goal kick. You must remember it.
I know the one, and he whipped it all the way across.
And he's near the corner flag. He's not near the box. He's near the corner flag. And he whips it across the 6-yard box. It's absolutely fantastic, like nobody's business. Mason Greenwood could not have done that. He could not have done it. Now, the mere fact that nobody's on the end of it to head it in is now, it's just madness, all these little bits and pieces. Oh, he put a good ball in and he scored it. If somebody would have hit that ball in that James put across, it was an unbelievable cross from right by the corner flag where he's only just kept it in. He hasn't taken the touch to keep it in. He's whipped it across first touch.
But this is what I'm talking about, Rick. This is what I'm talking about. If no one's there to... No, but that's my point about the Greenwood situation. If no one headers it, you're still saying, what a ball that was. Like, so just what I'm saying is, the respect on the cross has just got to be put there.
I mean, I'm pointing that out. You're right. I'm pointing it out that was a great ball that nobody was on the end of. But I mean, people in general are talking about what a great ball by Greenwood. When you think about the ball that Greenwood put in against Spurs that was passed to him, it was straight to his feet and he just literally got to whip it over. The ball that James put in against Granada is racing like a whippet towards the corner flag and cutting it back while he's running that way and whipping it that way and just keeping it in. And by the way, don't forget, he's only just keeping it in. And he's like a greyhound. Think of another player trying to race after it.
Yeah, well, that's his best attribute. That's one of Dan James' best attributes.
He's just keeping it in, and he's like a greyhound. And he whips it across the 6-yard box with nobody on the end of it.
I hear what you're saying.
If he would have headed that ball in, it would have been unbelievable.
Couple of super chats here before I come to Jay and Owen. Abjet says, in 2023, Greenwood will be our main striker, banging in 30 goals, while McTominay will be playing for Newcastle or any team that Jose or any team Jose manages if he finds a job. Mahmood says, does Ricky's best 11 include Taibbi, Fortune, and Kleberson? Does it, Rick?
Funnily enough,
oh my God.
Fortune and Kleberson vastly underrated. Vastly underrated.
Fortune maybe. Kleberson. Not Kleberson. I'll say Fortune. I'd say Fortune maybe a little bit more.
Underrated.
But I don't know about Kleberson. Arita says, haha boys, I'm a bit tipsy and Ricky is pissing me off. They must have been down the pub, Rick. I don't know. Maybe they're watching on their phone.
They're not linked.
Yeah. And Ohio Troop has a super chat for you, Rick. And he says, is Dan James your son, Ricky? Is he? Jay, I don't really know where to go now.
I do. Don't worry, I do. I was taking all that in about Dan James and his attributes as a potential Ballon d'Or winner in 2027. I was taking it all in. But what I will say, and I had to refer to my notes back to the Granada game. Ricky, I'm sorry to say, I must have missed that cross because I was probably asleep. But I didn't realise Dan James was actually on the pitch until the 58th minute when, I have it here, no Granada player booked until the 58th minute before tackle when Dan James got milled by the fullback. So that's all I saw of Dan James that night. I was probably asleep the rest of it.
They can't stop him without crashing into him.
Yassir says, super chat here, Ricky is saying Greenwood is better than striker than Daniel James, and Daniel James is a better winger than Mason, which is true. Is that what you're saying, Rick?
Anybody who can't say that Dan James is a better winger than Mason Greenwood, they don't understand.
Why? Because he's better at tracking back.
No, it's just
keep shape. Don't forget, keep your shape.
I just so strongly disagree with that. I just think when you look at both of them talent-wise, and obviously normally it would be unfair because Greenwood's so much younger, but when you just look at them like from an offensive standpoint, even when it's on the right wing, it's night and day.
Okay, after free seats, for 30 seconds, flex.
Sorry. The opposite way.
Listen.
What makes you right? Because you might have 100,000 people supporting your view. I might have 50 people supporting my view.
I know, I agree. Listen, I agree with you.
Oh, no,
I agree. Listen, Ricky, that's the beauty of it. It's all about opinions. I always say it's all about opinions. Let's do 30 seconds to the free seats. Who would you rather play out on the right, Dan James or Greenwood? Free seats, 30 seconds.
Jay, that's unfair.
Why is it not unfair?
I don't care if 100,000 people agree with you. I don't care if 100,000 people agree with you. I don't care. But
they have their opinions as well, Ricky. Do they not? The free seats and people watching, they have their opinions as well. Everybody watching has an opinion, and I'd love to see what they say.
From an attacking standpoint, what does he do better than Greenwood? No, I don't care about shape and defensive standpoint because we're not West Brom, we're Man United. So from an attacking standpoint, what does he do better?
You're not grasping the importance of playing football in the right manner, Jay. If you're talking about what does he do better, you're talking about.
Alex asked that, not me.
No, it means Alex.
Specific moments in the game. I've only got to watch the match for an hour and see Dan James play to see that he races onto balls that he realises instantaneously. All I've got to do here is, people think this is nothing. They think it's ridiculous. He races onto a ball. He realises instantaneously that there's no way forward. He takes a touch. He turns back. He passes it instantaneously. Mason takes a little bit too long, thinking that he can get past someone, and it slows the whole process down. It slows the flow of the game down. Dan James is better at it on the wing than Mason Greenwood by a country mile. He's a better footballer by a country mile. Despite the fact that Mason can score more easily, he can shoot better, his crossing is equally as good. No better, but it's equally as good. It's about it's about how you play the game and how quickly you realise this situation requires this to happen. And Dan James has got it, and Mason's not quite there yet. And you can't teach that, and you also can't teach people to see it either. You can't.
Let me get this super chat before I come to Owen. Nathan says Ricky is right, and you guys should try to understand as opposed to shutting him down. Dan James is an old-fashioned winger. Looks to cross. Mason doesn't do that. So is a winger. So as a winger, he doesn't do a winger's job. So basically, what Nathan's saying is actually Ricky's got a very good point, because as an old-fashioned winger in quotations, with what a winger is supposed to do, keep the shape, keep the width, get to the byline, and supply the ball into the box and cross. Dan James is more prone to doing that, where I suppose Greenwood would have different layers to his game where he can give you different options because he's going to come in off that right-hand side. An inverted winger, a new school winger is inverted. You've got Sterling on the left, he comes in and makes things happen. You've got Mahrez on the right. Would we say that Dan James is better than Mahrez? Would we say that? We probably wouldn't. They're just two different types. Well, Mahrez is clear, but what I'm saying is that there is also this thing of different types of winger, which I think isn't also being remembered here, because actually you look at how the game's moved on, you look at the top teams, which we talk about how they play football and we need to replicate that. Well, they've got inverted wingers, almost all of them. Mahrez cuts in, Sterling cuts in, Mane cuts in, Salah cuts in. None of them are like Dan James who go down the wing and cross it in. So I'm not saying that he's shit, but I'm just saying that there's a different breed of winger.
His best position is left wing, not right wing anyway.
He cutting in onto his right, potentially.
Played left wing for Swansea.
Go
for it, Rick. Go for it. And then we'll go to Owen. I promise.
Marcus prefers to play on the left wing. Marcus prefers to play on the left wing.
Yeah.
Mason prefers to play on the right wing. I used to speak about this with Phil Neville, by the way. Phil Neville, Dennis Irwin used to play left back. Gary Neville used to play right back. Phil Neville used to play either side. Either side, no problem. Dennis Irwin could play either side, no problem as well. But he generally played left. Gary Neville played right. In our team today, Marcus Rashford plays on the left. Mason Greenwood plays on the right. Dan James If Mason's left out, Dan James plays on the right. If Marcus is left out, Dan James plays on the left. Right? Now then, no matter, it's not just about the fact that Marcus is more comfortable on the left. It's not just about the fact that Mason's more comfortable on the right. It's about the fact that that Dan James is good enough to play on either side. He's equally at home on either flank. Like Phil Neville was when he used to. If Phil Neville played because Gary Neville was missing, we didn't used to switch Dennis Irwin to right back and put him at left back. He would just play equally well on either side. And this is the situation we've got now with Dan James. Doesn't matter which winger's missing, he's fine on either side. The other two are not fine on either side. Does that not tell you anything?
Ubisoft says United CDM is an absolute shambles. What we really need is a central defensive midfielder like Zurich FC's up and coming Sean Leah. Nathan Red. Oliver Young says, I'm sorry, Dan James has proved time and time again he is bad at crossing. Could you see Dan James pick out Cavani like Greenwood did? Ricky touched on that and why that was such a good cross. And Tariq Bester, thanks for the super chat, says, are we really saying that Dan James is better than Greenwood? What in capital letters? Owen, just on what we've just been talking about, Truth Seeker says equally average on both sides. How do you see it all? It's a melting pot of opinions. Ricky coming with some strong opinions as to how he sees Dan James. Alex coming with some others. The free seats. Everyone's having their say. How do you see it?
Well, to be in fairness, and I don't mean to sit on the fence, I don't mean to be boring, but I think the comparison, in fairness, I think it's apples to oranges, in fairness. I think if you're comparing Mason Greenwood to Dan James, and it's going to sound really stupid, but the only reason we're comparing them is because sometimes they're shoved out on the right. Mason Greenwood, I think already, and I know people could argue maybe he's got a little bit more to develop physically, maybe decision-making, all that kind of stuff, but he's a 9. He's a 9. He's a striker, and he is a striker playing right wing sometimes. Now, if I was going to pick between the two, and I fear the wrath of Ricky, if I was going to pick the two, it would be Greenwood. It would be Greenwood because, and the only reason is because I think in that key moment, that key pass, that key cross, I prefer Greenwood to actually, make the right decision or to have the final end product in terms of the quality. Because in fairness to Dan James, you do get work rate, and in certain games that is needed. That's absolutely needed. Some games you do need running, and I do think he's better on the left anyway, as opposed to a right winger, because I think he's more of a traditional winger. But the problem with Dan James is end product. Is end product sometimes, and that's where I think Greenwood has it over him anyway. But again, I think it's apples to oranges. In fairness, I do think it's apples to oranges because even at this point in his career, I think Greenwood's already a 9. So I find it slightly incomparable. But if I had to pick, I would say Greenwood.
Chris Packhurst says, sorry, Ahmad is better than Dan James and younger. Sancho is better than Dan James and plays either wing. Let's crack on. Crack a can of whoop. Would you agree, Jay?
We haven't seen enough of Ahmed. We haven't seen enough of Ahmed to ascertain is he better than Dan James or any other player in the other side for that matter, because he's enough game time. And obviously Sancho versus Dan James, even Ricky would testify that Sancho is better than Dan James. Would you agree, Ricky?
He's better than Dan James.
Yeah, Sancho. The question was Sancho better?
I've seen your tweet.
That was the question. That was the question.
It sounds a bit ridiculous because Sancho's so well rated, but I honestly haven't watched him enough. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen when you've watched him, Rick, and you've said as well. Oh, anyone seen Sancho playing for England? Doesn't look. I've seen when you've seen he hasn't really filled you every time.
He hasn't particularly impressed me. I watched Dan James. Yeah. I've watched Sancho play for England a few times and not been particularly impressed. I saw Dan James score a fantastic goal for Wales last week.
Yeah.
To be fair to Dan James, that Wales goal was phenomenal, to be fair.
Sancho, the goal that Dan James scored for Wales last week, I'll be very, very surprised if he could have scored that goal. I know Marcus Rashford couldn't have scored it, and I don't think Greenwood would have scored it either. There's all different strengths to the game.
What, the
header that
Rashford scored
Lex,
like that.
Lex, you know the goal I'm talking about. Would you expect
Greenwood scored a header against Brighton, didn't he?
Would you expect Marcus Rashford or Mason Greenwood to score that goal that Dan James scored for Wales.
I wouldn't even expected Dan James to score. He don't score a lot of headers.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's just one of no, but what I'm saying is just one of them goals that can just happen sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Dan James isn't renowned for his heading.
It's also the case with the other players, isn't it?
Rashford scored a good header against Newcastle yesterday last year from across from Wan-Bissaka. He scored against Norwich when Juan Mata cut in and delivered it to the back stick. Who was there to head it home? Rashford. Well. Say that again.
That Villa one that was disallowed as well. Or not disallowed, or given as an own goal that went off.
They're all odd moments in games, aren't they? In a nutshell, Dan James scored a fantastic goal last week, and every time when any of our other players score fantastic goals, it's like nobody else can score fantastic goals, isn't it? You know what I mean?
100%. No, Dan James did score a great goal. And the last super chat of the day, a bit of tongue in cheek from Jay Links fam says, Ricky, who's better, Ronaldo or James? And Ricardo says, "Sing Dan James is not better than Greenwood. No end product. Can James do what Greenwood did yesterday?" And Owen says Sancho is 10.
Yes, he can.
Okay, that's Ricky's answer. There you go. Owen 97 says Sancho is 10 times the player James is. His output in the Bundesliga for the last couple of seasons has been immense. He's genuinely world class. And Ali Morgan says, Ricky only likes him because he works hard and he's fast. Fed up of people thinking he's a good player because he runs around a lot. He's terrible. End of. And another super chat from Ronald Jacob says, Greenwood has more goals in one season than Dan James has in his entire career. I rest my case. Listen, guys, we've come to the end of the show. Oh, Ohio says, I strongly believe James is paying Ricky to back him in every debate on this channel. Yeah, Ricky says, I wish he was. And Maya says, a question for everyone. If you had the chance to go back in time and make amends, would you still buy Dan James in hindsight, or would you save those £15 million? Well, we know Ricky would say, yes, buy him.
What would we get for Dan James now if we sold him?
15 million.
15 million.
Yeah, 15 million.
A lot more than that.
And Oliver H says Rashford and Greenwood are world class, and Daniel James is a terrible player. When have you seen Dan James be linked with Barcelona like Rashi? I don't think it's just about who you're linked with, but look, it's all about opinions. We've got to the end of the show. What a show, guys! Owen, brilliant debut. Like Ricky said after your first little input, great debut. Good to have you on, and be good to get you back on some shows coming up. It's great hearing you like that. We've got so many different faces, different voices, different opinions, and that is what it's all about. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock, so it's Champions League. Me and KG will be on. And then the day after that, we've got the press conference reaction leading up into the second leg of the Granada game. And then all of the good stuff on match day as well. We are out of it, guys. Extra long show tonight. You guys have enjoyed it. We've enjoyed it. And we will see you all again very, very soon.